The day my father told me I was no longer in his will, it felt like the air was sucked out of my lungs. We were sitting in his study, a room that had always smelled of leather, whiskey, and pride. He was behind his massive oak desk, the same one I used to crawl under as a kid while he worked. Only this time he wasn't looking at me like a son. He was looking at me like a disappointment. "Ethan," he said coldly, "you've made too many mistakes. I built this empire from nothing and I won't watch you destroy it." I swallowed hard. "Dad, I'm not trying to destroy anything. He cut me off with a hand wave. "Save it. You chose your own path when you walked out of this house to start what do you call it? A startup." His voice dripped with mockery. I clenched my fists under the desk. "That startup employs 40 people now," I said quietly. "We're not a joke anymore." He leaned back, swirling his drink. "Then live off it. Because after today you're not getting a cent from me." I stared at him, disbelief crawling up my throat. This wasn't about business. It was about pride, his pride. He couldn't stand the idea that I didn't want to inherit his company, that I wanted to build something on my own. "I'm still your son," I whispered. He looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. "Not anymore." The words hit harder than any slap could. When I walked out of that room, I knew something inside me had died, but something else had been born. I wasn't going to beg for his money or his approval. But one day he'd see me again, not as the failure he thought I was, but as the man who didn't need his name to stand tall. What he didn't know that day was that I'd already left something behind. Something that would change everything the moment he was gone. 2 years passed after that day. I hadn't stepped foot inside my father's mansion since. Not for birthdays, not for holidays, not even when his company hit another billion-dollar milestone and the media called him a self-made legend. To the world he was the perfect success story. To me he was the man who erased his own blood over pride. During those years I poured everything I had into my startup. Sleepless nights, unpaid rent, friendships that faded because I was too consumed by work. But slowly, painfully it began to pay off. We landed our first big investor, our first press feature, our first real profit. Still, every time I saw his face on TV or in a magazine, that familiar ache returned. He'd talk about legacy, about values, as if I didn't exist. The world believed he had one son, my older brother Adam, the golden child who'd stayed, who'd taken over the family company, who could do no wrong. Adam never called me either. Maybe he was too busy, maybe he didn't care. Or maybe he enjoyed being the only heir now. Then one morning I got a call from my mother. Her voice was trembling. "Ethan," she said softly, "your father, he's gone." For a moment I couldn't process the words. Gone? My father? The man who'd seemed immortal, untouchable? "He had a heart attack," she continued. "It was quick." I sat there in silence, staring at my coffee going cold. I should have felt something, grief, anger, regret, but all I felt was emptiness. "The will reading is on Friday," she said. "The lawyer asked for both of you to be there." "Both of us?" Meaning Adam and me. I almost said no. Why should I go? He made it clear I had no place in his life, or his will. But something in me whispered, go anyway. Because what my father didn't know, what no one knew, was that I'd already prepared for this moment. And the truth I'd buried inside his desk drawer 2 years ago was about to come alive. The drive to my father's house felt unreal. The last time I'd driven up that long stone driveway, the gates had closed behind me like I was being exiled. This time they opened slowly, quiet, heavy, like they knew something had changed. The mansion looked the same, the manicured lawn, the tall fountain in the center, the glass doors that reflected the morning sun. But it felt different. Empty. Like even the walls knew their king was gone. Inside, I found my mother waiting by the staircase. She looked smaller, somehow fragile. Her eyes softened when she saw me. "You came," she said, as if she hadn't been sure I would. "I had to," I replied quietly. Before she could say more, a familiar voice echoed from behind me. "Well, look who decided to show up." Adam. Same smug grin, same designer suit. He looked like a carbon copy of Dad, the heir he'd always wanted. "Nice of you to come, little brother," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Even though you're not really part of this anymore." I forced a smile. "Good to see you too, Adam." He smirked. "Don't get your hopes up. Dad made things very clear in his final draft." "I'm not here for money," I said flatly. "Of course not," he said with a grin. "That's what people who don't get any say." Before I could reply, the lawyer, Mr. Graham, appeared in the hallway holding a thick brown envelope. His gray hair and serious face hadn't changed since I last saw him years ago. "Gentlemen," he said, "shall we begin?" We followed him into my father's study. Everything was exactly as I remembered, the oak desk, the shelves filled with awards, the faint scent of his cologne lingering in the air. Mr. Graham sat behind the desk and began reading the will. My father's voice echoed in my mind as the lawyer spoke, property, stocks, accounts, all of it to Adam. When he finally said, "And to my second son Ethan, nothing," the room went silent. Adam glanced at me, smiling faintly. "Told you." But I didn't react. I was too busy watching the lawyer's hands, because in a few moments, those hands would reach for the drawer where I'd left the truth. Mr. Graham cleared his throat and stacked the final pages neatly. "That concludes the official reading of the will," he said. "As per Mr. Harper's last signed instructions." I leaned back in my chair, forcing myself to stay calm. My heart was pounding, but not from anger. From anticipation. Adam looked like he'd just won a war. He stood up, smirking. "Guess that's that," he said. "Dad made the right call." But Mr. Graham hesitated. He glanced down at the desk, brow furrowing slightly. "Actually, there's something else." Adam frowned. "What do you mean?" Mr. Graham opened the top drawer, the same drawer I had once used to leave something behind on the night everything fell apart. He pulled out a small black USB drive sealed in a labeled bag. "This," he said slowly, "was found in your father's personal drawer. It's dated exactly 2 years ago." My pulse quickened. He looked at both of us. "Your father gave no written instructions about it, but he left it here, deliberately. I believe we should play it." Adam rolled his eyes. "Probably just business files." He was obsessed with. "Let's play it," I said firmly. Mr. Graham nodded and inserted the USB into his laptop. For a moment the screen stayed black. Then the video started. It was my father, sitting right at that same desk, wearing the same watch, his expression stern but tired. "If you're watching this," his voice began, "then I'm gone." Adam shifted uncomfortably. "I made decisions that I thought were right," Dad continued. "But lately, I've begun to question whether I've been fair, especially to one of my sons." Adam's smirk faded. My father took a deep breath in the video. "Ethan, you were always different. Stubborn. Idealistic. You walked away from my world to build your own. I saw that as betrayal. But maybe it was courage." My throat tightened. He paused, staring into the camera. "If you left this message, Ethan, I found it, and I heard everything you said." Adam turned toward me sharply. "What message?" I didn't answer. I just looked back at the screen where my father was about to tell the truth I'd left behind. My father looked straight into the camera, and for the first time in years, his voice didn't sound like a man giving orders, it sounded like a man confessing. "You once told me," he said, "that legacy isn't what you leave in your bank account, but what you leave in people's hearts." I laughed at you. I called you naive. He paused, eyes lowering briefly. "But I've seen enough to know now that I was wrong." Adam shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "What is this?" he muttered, his voice cracking slightly. The lawyer silenced him with a glance. Dad continued, his face worn but sincere. "The day you walked out, Ethan, I was angry. Not because you failed me, but because you reminded me of who I used to be, a dreamer. I punished you for being me before I became this." I felt my chest tighten. I had recorded that message for him when I left, a final plea disguised as closure. I had said things to him I never had the courage to say in person. I left it in his drawer because deep down, I knew curiosity would make him listen one day. The video flickered. Now it was my voice on the screen. Younger, shaking but firm. "Dad, if you're watching this, it means I didn't give up on you. I know you think I'm lost, but I'm trying to build something that matters, not just for me but for the people who believe in me. You taught me strength, discipline, and persistence. I just wish you'd remember what those words really meant." The room went silent except for the faint hum of the speakers. On screen I kept speaking. "I don't want your money, Dad. I just want you to know I'm proud of the man I'm trying to become, even if you aren't." The camera shifted back to my father. His eyes were glassy. "You were right, son," he said softly. "I forgot what mattered. Maybe one day you'll forgive me." He looked directly at the lens. "Mr. Graham, if Ethan is in the room when this is played, please read the letter in the bottom drawer." Mr. Graham blinked in surprise. "There's a letter?" He reached down slowly, his hand trembling slightly, and pulled out a sealed white envelope with my name written on it. My heart stopped. Mr. Graham held the envelope carefully, his expression unreadable. "It's addressed to you, Ethan," he said softly, sliding it across the desk. The room was so quiet you could hear the faint ticking of the old wall clock. The same one that had marked every argument, every cold silence in that house. My fingers trembled slightly as I picked it up. The envelope was thick, heavy, my father's handwriting bold across the front. To my son Ethan. Adam leaned forward, his voice sharp. "What the hell is this, some kind of trick?" "Sit down, Adam," Mr. Graham said firmly. I carefully broke the seal and unfolded the letter. The handwriting inside was unmistakably his, confident but uneven in places, as if written by a man fighting emotion. "Ethan, if this letter reaches you, it means you came back, and that means more than you'll ever know. I've watched your company grow quietly from the sidelines. I've seen the way people respect you, the way you lead with your heart instead of your ego. I was wrong to think strength came from control. Real strength comes from conviction, and you had that long before I did. I changed my will once out of anger. But before I left this world, I changed it again. My heart skipped. Half of everything I own, the company, the estate, and the foundation, belongs to you now. The other half remains with your brother. I've made sure that both of you have to work together to keep it alive. Maybe that's the only way this family heals." I swallowed hard, reading the final line twice. "You were never cut out of my legacy, Ethan. You were always the part that gave it meaning." My throat burned. I couldn't speak. Adam stood up, furious. "This is ridiculous. This has to be forged." But Mr. Graham raised his hand calmly. "It's legitimate. Your father signed this version 2 months before his passing. I witnessed it myself." Adam turned red. "You're lying." "I don't think he is," I said quietly, folding the letter. "Because this sounds exactly like him." And for the first time in years I didn't feel anger or revenge. I just felt seen. Adam's face twisted in disbelief. "No," he said, shaking his head. "No, he would never do this. You think you can just walk in here after all these years and take half of everything? You didn't earn it, Ethan. You ran away." I looked at him calmly. "Maybe. But Dad didn't see it that way anymore." He slammed his hand on the desk, the echo sharp in the quiet room. "This is manipulation. You probably made that damn USB to guilt him. He was old, he wasn't thinking straight." "Enough," Mr. Graham interrupted firmly. "Your father was perfectly aware of what he was doing. I was there when he recorded that video and he was clear-minded. He said, and I quote, 'I want my sons to remember that money can build walls or it can build bridges. I hope they choose the latter.'" Adam's jaw clenched, his eyes cold. "You're not taking what's mine." I stood up slowly. "It's not yours, Adam. It's ours." "You heard him." He stepped closer, his voice low and venomous. "You always wanted to prove you were better than me. Well, congratulations, you got what you wanted." I met his gaze. "No, Adam. I didn't want to be better. I just wanted to be enough." The words seemed to hit him like a blow. For a second I saw something flicker in his eyes, guilt, maybe. But it disappeared as fast as it came. He turned away, muttering under his breath, "You'll ruin everything he built." "Maybe," I said quietly. "Or maybe I'll save it." He stormed out of the study, the sound of the heavy door slamming echoing through the hall. Mr. Graham sighed. "Your father knew this would happen," he said. "That's why he made you co-executors. Neither of you can sell or change anything without the other's approval. He wanted you to learn how to trust again, even if it's difficult." I nodded slowly, still staring at the letter in my hands. For years I thought my father never listened. But somehow he heard every word I'd said that night. He just needed time I thought he'd never take. And now, even in death, he'd found a way to speak louder than he ever did in life. After the will reading, I stayed behind in the study long after everyone had left. The house was quiet now. No footsteps, no voices, just the soft ticking of the clock and the hum of the ceiling fan. I sat there staring at the letter, tracing the shape of my name written in his hand. It felt unreal. The same man who once looked me in the eye and said I wasn't his son had written these words. Words that sounded like an apology. For the first time, I wasn't angry anymore. Just sad. Sad that it took death for him to finally see me. I looked around the room, every inch of it held a memory. The corner where I built my first model airplane with him. The window where he used to stand during storms, scotch in hand, pretending he wasn't worried about me coming home late. The same desk where I once placed that USB drive, a desperate hope that maybe someday he'd understand me. And somehow he did. My mother stepped quietly into the room. She stood in the doorway for a moment before saying softly, "He watched that video every week, you know?" I turned to her, stunned. "What?" She nodded, her eyes glistening. "He never told you, but he kept that USB on his desk. Said it reminded him of who he used to be. I think he wanted to fix things. He just ran out of time. My chest ached. Why didn't he call me? He tried, she said. So many times. He just didn't know how to say it. I looked down at the letter again. He said Adam and I have to work together now. She smiled faintly. Then do it. For him. I didn't answer. But deep down I knew she was right. My father didn't just leave us money, he left us a challenge. As I walked out of the study that night, the old house felt lighter, almost forgiving. Maybe some things can't be fixed in time. But sometimes, love finds a way to reach you even after the clock stops ticking. And this time I wasn't going to waste it. The following weeks were complicated. Adam avoided me completely. Every meeting Mr. Graham tried to schedule between us ended with an excuse from him: busy, traveling, not ready. I didn't push. I knew him well enough to understand he needed space to let the truth sink in. Meanwhile, I spent my days sorting through Dad's papers and business files. His company, Harper Dynamics, was massive, structured like a kingdom. But behind the glossy success I found cracks. Unpaid invoices, neglected charities, employees under pressure to meet impossible deadlines. It hit me that, in trying to control everything, my father had slowly suffocated the heart out of his own empire. And now it was on me and Adam to breathe life back into it. One afternoon, as I sat in his office reviewing reports, I found another folder tucked behind a drawer panel, one labeled "For my sons." Inside was a handwritten note and two identical cufflinks engraved with the letter H. The note read, "You two are opposite ends of the same rope. Pull against each other and it breaks. Pull together and it can lift anything." I stared at the cufflinks for a long time, wondering if he knew how perfectly that line described us. Adam had always been the fire, proud, explosive, desperate to win. I had always been the quiet storm, patient, stubborn, unwilling to give in. Together we could have built something unstoppable. If only we hadn't spent years trying to prove who was right. That evening I called him. To my surprise he answered. "What do you want, Ethan?" he said, his voice sharp. "I want to talk," I said calmly. "About Dad's note. About the company. Don't start with that sentimental crap." "It's not sentimental," I said. "It's real. The company's falling apart. If we don't work together, everything he built will crumble. Is that what you want?" There was a long silence. I could hear his breathing through the phone, uneven. Finally he sighed. "Fine. Tomorrow. My office. Noon." The call ended. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't peace. But it was something, a start. And for the first time in years, it felt like maybe Dad's words had reached us both. The next day I walked into Adam's office, sleek, minimalist, filled with the smell of expensive coffee and ego. He was already sitting behind his desk, scrolling through something on his phone, pretending I wasn't there. "Right on time," I said. He didn't look up. "Don't make a habit of it." I smirked. "You haven't changed." He set his phone down finally and looked at me. "You said you wanted to talk. So talk." I pulled out the folder I'd brought, financial reports, letters from key clients, a few contracts. "The company's bleeding, Adam. Revenue's flat, but spending's up 20%. Employee turnover is worse than it's ever been. If we don't step in, Harper Dynamics won't survive another 2 years." He scanned the papers briefly, then shrugged. "You think I don't know that? It's under control." "No," I said calmly. "It's not." He shot me a glare. "You walk in after all these years and think you can fix everything overnight? You don't know how this place runs." I met his stare. "Maybe I don't. But I know how people work. And they're losing faith in this company, in you." That last part hit him. He straightened, defensive. "Watch your tone." "I'm not attacking you," I said. "I'm saying we can fix this, together. You handle operations. I'll manage innovation and outreach. Dad wanted us both here for a reason." Adam scoffed. "Dad's gone, Ethan. Stop acting like you're fulfilling his dying wish. You're just trying to prove you're better than me." I leaned forward. "No. I'm trying to prove we're better than him." That stopped him cold. For a few seconds he said nothing. Then, slowly, his expression softened, just a fraction. "You think you can save this place?" I nodded. "We both can. But we have to start now." He stared at me for a moment longer, then sighed. "Fine. You get one chance. Don't screw it up." I smiled faintly. "You'll see, brother. I won't." As I walked out of his office, I caught my reflection in the glass wall, older, calmer, but finally standing where I belonged. For the first time, it felt like Dad's empire might become our legacy. Over the next few months, Adam and I worked side by side, something I never imagined would happen. The first few weeks were rough. We argued about everything: budgets, leadership styles, even the color of the new company logo. But somehow, amidst all the clashes, something changed. We began to listen to each other. I started spending long hours at the office, rebuilding the culture my father had lost touch with. I walked the floors, talked to the employees, asked about their ideas. To my surprise, they opened up quickly. "No one's ever asked us before," one of them said, smiling. That was when I realized how disconnected leadership had become from the people who made the company run. Meanwhile, Adam handled the business side, negotiating deals, restructuring departments, keeping the numbers steady. For the first time, I saw what Dad must have seen in him: the confidence, the hunger, the fire. And I think Adam saw something new in me too: calm, patience, and a perspective that wasn't driven by pride. One evening, after a long day of meetings, I found Adam standing alone in Dad's old office. He was staring at the portrait that hung above the fireplace, our father in his prime, holding the very first Harper Dynamics product in his hand. "He always wanted me to be like him," Adam said quietly. I stood beside him. "He wanted both of us to be better than him." Adam nodded slowly. "He was hard on you because you reminded him of who he was before the money. He was hard on me because I became who he feared he'd become." I looked at him. "And yet, here we are, fixing what he built." He chuckled softly. Guess the old man knew what he was doing after all. We stood there for a while in silence, two brothers who had finally stopped fighting ghosts. When we turned off the lights and walked out, I noticed the USB drive still sitting on Dad's desk. The same one that started it all. I picked it up, slipped it into my pocket, and smiled. "Let's make sure he'd be proud," I said. Adam looked at me, and for once he didn't argue. He just nodded. The following year was nothing short of a transformation. Harper Dynamics began to change, not just in profits or structure but in soul. We launched new community programs, invested in clean tech, and started a foundation in our father's name, the Harper Initiative for Innovation and Integrity. Investors who had once doubted us began returning. Employees who had resigned asked to come back. The company that had once been defined by ego and control was now known for vision and compassion. Adam and I still argued, of course. That would never change. But now it wasn't about who was right, it was about what was best. Somewhere along the way we had learned how to fight together. One morning I walked into Dad's office, now redesigned, brighter, more open. His portrait still hung on the wall, but below it was something new: a photo of me and Adam at the first annual Harper Foundation event. We were both laughing, not posing, a candid shot my mother had insisted on framing. She entered the room then, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You boys did it," she said softly. I smiled. "We're getting there." She looked at the photo and sighed with a small smile. "He'd be proud, you know." I nodded. "I think he already is." After she left, I sat behind the desk, his desk, and pulled open the top drawer out of habit. Inside was the USB. I'd kept it there all this time, a quiet reminder of how far we'd come. I turned it over in my hand, remembering the night I left it there, angry, hurt, desperate to be heard. Back then, I thought it was a message for him. But now, I realized it had been a message for me. A message that said, "Speak your truth. Even if no one listens now, one day they will." I smiled to myself, placed it back in the drawer, and whispered, "Thanks, Dad." The sunlight from the window hit the portrait above me, casting a soft glow across the room. For the first time in a long time, everything felt exactly as it should be: balanced, peaceful, and whole. Months rolled by, and for once, life moved without chaos. The company was stable, our family was healing, and even Adam seemed lighter, less guarded, more human. It was strange watching him smile during meetings, even crack a joke now and then. It felt like Dad's shadow was finally lifting from both of us. One late evening, I was working alone in the office. The city lights outside glowed against the glass walls, and the hum of computers filled the silence. I reached for a file but instead noticed an old brown envelope tucked between folders. It was labeled simply, "For Ethan and Adam." Curious, I opened it. Inside were 2 handwritten letters, one addressed to each of us, and a photo. It was a picture of our family from years ago. Dad stood in the center, hand on my shoulder, Adam on his other side, Mom smiling beside us. We looked happy, truly happy. Back then, before ego, before money, before pride. I opened my letter first. His handwriting was steadier this time. "Ethan, if you're reading this, then you've done what I couldn't, brought peace back into this family. I spent years chasing success, thinking it would make you proud of me when all along I should have been proud of you. Don't stop building. Not for the company but for people. You have the heart I lost along the way. Let that be your compass. My eyes stung as I folded the letter. I passed Adams across his desk the next morning. He opened it in silence, read it slowly, then set it down. He said the same thing to me, Adam whispered. Just different words. What did he write? I asked. Adam, you were my fire. I taught you to win, but I never taught you when to stop fighting. Let Ethan teach you that. Adam looked at me, eyes misted. He knew us better than we thought. Yeah, I said quietly. Maybe he always did. He nodded, exhaling deeply. Guess it's time we start acting like it. And in that moment, for the first time in our lives, we weren't rivals or heirs or opposites. We were just brothers again. Weeks later, I found myself back at my father's grave. The wind was soft that day, carrying the scent of rain and freshly cut grass. The cemetery was quiet, just the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of the city below. I stood there with my hands in my pockets, staring at his name carved into the marble. Richard Harper, visionary, leader, father. For a long time I said nothing. There were no speeches left to make, no anger to let out. Just peace. I used to think I hated you, I finally said aloud. But I never did. I just wanted you to see me. The clouds shifted, sunlight breaking through in gentle streaks across the stone. I smiled faintly. I guess you did after all. I placed something on his grave, the USB drive. The same one that had once been a symbol of pain, rebellion, and desperate hope. It started everything, I said quietly. But now, I think it's time to let it rest with you. Behind me, footsteps approached. It was Adam, hands in his coat pockets. Couldn't let you have the last word again, he said with a small smirk. I laughed softly. Wouldn't be you if you did. He stopped beside me, looking down at the grave. For a moment, we both stood there in silence, two sons finally understanding the man they'd spent their lives trying to please. He was tough on us, Adam said quietly. But maybe, that's what made us tough enough to fix what he couldn't. Maybe, I said. Or maybe he just knew we'd need each other in the end. Adam nodded slowly. You ever think he planned all this? I smiled. Knowing him? Probably. We stood there for a while longer, the sky turning gold as the sun began to set. Then Adam turned to me. Come on. Mom's waiting for us. I looked back one last time, the light catching the USB resting on the stone. Goodbye, Dad, I whispered. As we walked away, I realized something I never thought I would. I wasn't the son he disowned anymore. I was the man he helped shape, even when he didn't know he was doing it. And somehow that was enough. Weeks later, I found myself back at my father's grave. The wind was soft that day, carrying the scent of rain and freshly cut grass. The cemetery was quiet, just the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of the city below. I stood there with my hands in my pockets, staring at his name carved into the marble. Richard Harper, visionary, leader, father. For a long time I said nothing. There were no speeches left to make, no anger to let out. Just peace. I used to think I hated you, I finally said aloud. But I never did. I just wanted you to see me. The clouds shifted, sunlight breaking through in gentle streaks across the stone. I smiled faintly. I guess you did after all. I placed something on his grave, the USB drive. The same one that had once been a symbol of pain, rebellion, and desperate hope. It started everything, I said quietly. But now, I think it's time to let it rest with you. Behind me, footsteps approached. It was Adam, hands in his coat pockets. Couldn't let you have the last word again, he said with a small smirk. I laughed softly. Wouldn't be you if you did. He stopped beside me, looking down at the grave. For a moment, we both stood there in silence, two sons finally understanding the man they'd spent their lives trying to please. He was tough on us, Adam said quietly. But maybe, that's what made us tough enough to fix what he couldn't. Maybe, I said. Or maybe he just knew we'd need each other in the end. Adam nodded slowly. You ever think he planned all this? I smiled. Knowing him? Probably. We stood there for a while longer, the sky turning gold as the sun began to set. Then Adam turned to me. Come on. Mom's waiting for us. I looked back one last time, the light catching the USB resting on the stone. Goodbye, Dad, I whispered. As we walked away, I realized something I never thought I would. I wasn't the son he disowned anymore. I was the man he helped shape, even when he didn't know he was doing it. And somehow that was enough.